Thank you, Brother Srila. Just since you're asking us all to participate in a quiz, I was going to ask you who's keeping a timer for you. Is that Sri Devi or just yourself?
Myself.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to ATCS. First of all, I'll start off by letting you know that when a friend of ours found out that I would be one of the speakers for tonight, they asked if I would be speaking in Telugu. Of course, most of you know me and my limitations when it comes to Telugu, and they were also subtle enough to remind me that the T in ATCS stands for Telugu. But unfortunately, after being with ATCS even for 18 years, I will have to do this in English, so please bear with me. And I do thank Brother Mohan. This is also my first time in 18 years to speak on a Good Friday, so I thank him for tricking me / asking me to speak tonight. Today we reflect on the 7 final words that Jesus gave during the final hours of his mortal life. His statements have a significant impact on us even to this day. So what has led to this moment? His joyous entry to Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, where everybody greeted him with joy because they knew this was the Messiah that was promised to them. The next thing was the Lord's Supper, where Jesus told them something unusual, did something unusual, and he told his disciples to continue doing that. The third thing was when he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. The anguish that he felt about his impending death, and for the cup of suffering to pass. The fourth thing was Judas' betrayal and his consequent arrest by the soldiers. Peter, one of his most ardent followers who was with him throughout his ministry, denying him 3 times. Then being brought and tried in front of Pontius Pilate, and then sentenced to die. He was then forced to carry his own cross through the strange streets of Jerusalem to the hill of Golgotha to die. And there, once they reached this hill, he was nailed to the cross and crucified. In this space of abject pain, Jesus spoke his first words. For a moment, I want you all to vision the pain that Jesus was going through. He was stripped simply to be humiliated. His hands were nailed to the cross and spread open across the cross. His feet were nailed to the cross. How painful that would have been. A crown of thorns rested on his head, clearly poking him, making him bleed. His hands bleeding, his feet bleeding, his head bleeding. Jesus was whipped. He was scourged and beaten. He was whipped with whips that contained bone and glass that would have ripped the flesh from his body. Imagine the pain, the immense pain that Jesus would have been through at that time. It would have been even difficult just to breathe, let alone speak. The physical pain of carrying a cross over 300 pounds through Jerusalem, at one point so heavy that somebody else had to help him. In this moment, Jesus utters the words, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do." Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. Forgiveness. Why was forgiveness so important to God at this time? Why was he thinking about compassion? Why was he being so merciful at this time? If somebody has wronged you, if your child has said something hurtful, if your husband has behaved in some way that has hurt you or offended you, would your first thought be forgiveness? I can easily say no. Most of us, our reaction would be anger. It would be bitterness. It would be retaliation. But never forgiveness. And who is the them that Jesus refers to? Is it the people that nailed him to the cross? Is it the people that whipped him and stabbed him? Is it the people around him that mocked and spit upon him? Was it Judas who sold him for 30 pieces of silver? Or was it Peter who denied him over and over again? Was it Pontius Pilate who condemned him even when he knew he was innocent? Or is the them us, you and me? Because why was God here on earth? Why was Jesus here on earth? He was here, he came to wash our sins away, because we are all sinners. That was the reason he came to this earth. So the them is all of us. We are all sinners, and we are in need of forgiveness. With his words, Jesus has shown, living by example, that we should love our enemies and forgive those who persecute you. He is asking us to extend mercies to others when we are totally undeserving, just as God has extended mercies to us. Whether it's deserved, unwarranted, or not even acknowledged, we are to forgive, just as God and Jesus has forgiven us. In forgiving, that is not an easy thing to do. I can say very easily that it is not at all easy. When we forgive somebody, we often feel that we have given up control, we have given in into what we hold. And does the pain, once you forgive somebody, if you find it in your heart to forgive somebody, does the pain and the hurt go away? Does it go away in 2 days, in 2 weeks, maybe in 2 years? Not always. Sometimes it stays with you. Certainly, the pain and the hurt cannot be erased all the time. But in forgiving somebody also, is the relationship restored? Do we get back to being the best of friends with somebody? Do you think Jesus would have become good friends with these people that pierced him and mocked him and took his clothes away? It is not always the same, but forgiveness is what God is asking of us. The people that hurt and crucified him were ignorant in what they were doing, yet God forgave them. In the same way, we are ignorant when we sin, yet God forgives us. Whether we know we've sinned, whether we are unrepentant, whether we acknowledge that we have sinned, and we definitely are not deserving, God forgave and God forgives. It is very significant to note that when he said these words, he addressed his Father. He did not address the people perpetrating all these things to him. He addressed his Father. Father, forgive them. Why is it that he addressed his Father and not the people who put him on the cross? Sorry. When they hurled the insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly. This is the most important part of this message. So if you leave here tonight not knowing what Mona has said at all, remember this. In forgiving, he relinquished his control over to God in utter faithfulness. That God will handle this situation. God will handle any situation. God will correct what has been wrong to you. God will judge and judge fairly. God will be the one to make it right and unburden you. And God will be the one to restore. So I close with these words. And in the next, maybe even in the next hours coming, there will be a need to forgive somebody, maybe in the next week or in the weeks to come. I want you to think, what is my first instinct? Is it to forgive and remember that God is in control? Or are you going to hold on to yourself and feel that bitterness? So make a commitment tonight that you will open up, forgive, and give to God. Thank you for your time.